Australia's banks want you microchipped. Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of the people. John, what's all this rubbish?
Martin, only a couple of days ago did I get an email from one of our viewers who was deeply concerned that they had received an email campaign from their bank, an Australian bank, Suncorp, who is putting this idea out there as to whether their customers want to be microchipped. And the argument was that by being microchipped, it could drive efficiencies for customers in terms of their interaction with the financial system. So we're going to get into this because I think this is a very big, shocking revelation. But we have been on a crusade, you and I, for many years about economic freedom, freedom in general, not being surveilled by government, surveilled by big banks. And obviously that's why we fought the cash ban. And we were successful and to say to the government, we want to engage in commerce without you knowing what we're doing. And now we have at least one bank in Australia saying to the customers, how about we put a microchip into your hand so that anytime you want to do banking, supposedly it's more convenient, but in reality, the bank will have all sorts of information implanted into someone's hand. It is completely nuts. And this is just another example of again, so a couple of years ago when someone would suggest something along these lines, it's a conspiracy theory. And we always hear when dangerous ideas first pop up, it's a conspiracy theory, but then they somehow become reality. And the concern is that rather than having a full open debate about where this whole agenda is going, it is a quiet, slow, creeping set of events where they because obviously the issue is if they were to, when I say they, as in the establishment, big business, big government, big tech, if they were to say to the public at large, okay, this is the end state we want to take you in, I think most people would say, no way, I don't want to live in that world. So they can't tell us forthrightly. So what they're trying to do is slowly but surely take baby steps so that we don't notice, and they take us to the destination that they want to. And obviously, in the context of our last show about the World Economic Forum, I mean that's why a lot of Australians, but people around the world, have very large concerns about where is the world headed. And this whole notion that an Australian bank would say to its customers, we want to do a survey and we want to see if you would voluntarily be microchipped, completely nuts.
Well, it is crazy. I mean, I happen to know a few things internationally. That I know that there's a company in the US who's arguing that people already use mobile phones today and they have biometrics on those mobile phones, fingerprint or face, whatever, right? And what that basically means is that you've got already a connectivity to do with your person and your functionality. So why not just take the next step, which is basically, chip in your arm, and who needs a mobile phone anymore? And of course, there are a few high-tech people who actually have already gone down that route and actually have chipped themselves and are using it as part of their own experiments or whatever. But the idea of pushing this more generally into the population, and I can't help but say, well, you just have a chip and you have central bank digital currency, put those two things together, and what have you got?
Indeed. So Martin, just so we can demonstrate to our audience that we're not making this up, let's actually put slide 1 on the screen. So the viewer who sent this to me, her name's Lisa, and I'll just leave it at that. But I just want to quote from this email because there is something which is, I think, fundamentally wrong. So if we just look at the second sentence in the first paragraph, it says, quote, "Considering how much closer we are with technology, it makes sense for the next step to be keeping it inside our bodies with microchips." Right. I mean, it makes no sense as to why we would voluntarily submit ourselves to a bank to put a microchip in ourselves. And so for Suncorp to send out this communication was sent roughly around the 12th of August. So about a week and a half ago. So for Suncorp to say it makes sense that the next evolution of in terms of banking and the financial system is for customers to implant themselves with chips so that they can deal easy with the bank. I mean, I don't understand what these people are thinking because it makes no sense to me. And well, we're going to get to it into a second because there's been a very significant PR backlash with Suncorp, and that's why they've had to withdraw a full spread web page where they had all sorts of information about this initiative, and we'll show in a second that they actually had to take it all down.
Yeah, it's just quite interesting, isn't it? That if you click through from the link that was attached to the email, it now goes nowhere, right? Whereas previously it went somewhere, right?
Yeah.
That tells you something quite interesting. So I think there's been a bit of reaction, and you know, I have to say, I wonder whether it has anything at all to do with the fact that Suncorp is in current negotiation with ANZ about ANZ buying Suncorp Bank. I don't know. It could just be timing, you know.
Banks have to respect liberal democracy. They have to respect individual autonomy, bodily autonomy. And once you start to invade us with these dangerous ideas, there's going to be significant commercial pushback.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And pushback, of course, from individuals about their personal identity. And as you say, about what the potential could be and where it's going to go. And that's the point always. And you make the point earlier on, I want to reiterate it. You know, little baby steps that don't in themselves seem that worrying, but you've got to say, but where are those steps taking us? And unfortunately, you can put these things together in a way that shows you that if you put the right elements together, then, you know, dictatorial control and lack of autonomy and lack of freedom is the destination. And I have a problem with that.
Indeed. So in terms of where we go forward, so I think at this stage, Suncorp has taken their material down. Now, look, funny enough, Martin, I actually did get an email from a second Suncorp customer this morning who shared this email with me. So obviously, I mean, we've authenticated that this is real. A couple of customers have shared me this, so this is not a conspiracy theory or a hoax. Suncorp did actually put this out there.
Yep.
So in terms of where we go from here, I would recommend a few things. If you are a Suncorp customer, you should be emailing Suncorp Head HQ and saying, stop this madness because if you don't, we're going to move to another bank. I mean the biggest threat that. In terms of, I remember when I was studying economics in high school, we learned this concept about consumer sovereignty. So the sovereignty of the consumer is, if you don't like what the business is doing, just say, I'm not going to do business with you. So if Suncorp customers say, you do this again, we're going to withdraw our account from you, I think Suncorp HQ will get the message. But beyond that, I think that if you are a customer of any financial institution, perhaps just sending a friendly email saying, we're aware of the Suncorp initiative. We would appreciate it if your bank doesn't take up this concept. That's one. I think two is that for anyone who's inclined, potentially to email the Australian Banking Association and saying that we are concerned that Suncorp may be letting the cat out of the bag about a nationwide industry initiative, and that it's in the interest of the Australian Banking Association to publicly denounce this type of idea, but also in the context of policymakers. So obviously we have the treasurer, the assistant treasurer in the Albanese government, and then you have the shadow treasurer and the shadow assistant treasurer emailing these four people, which is Chalmers, Stephen Jones, Angus Taylor, and Stuart Robert, and just saying that any attempt to microchip the Australian people in order to access banking services is a complete anathema to where we want Australia to go. And potentially, I mean, maybe it has to get to the stage where we call on Parliament to introduce a law to make sure that that banks don't have any ideas. So, I mean, potentially microchipping for access to banking services should be illegal, so that we can say to the banks, forget about it. Parliament's going to say no.